What is up, everyone? Welcome back to the Engineers Without Filters podcast, episode 70. The big 7-0. Some people say it's a milestone, but it's not.
Maybe.
I feel like every episode's a milestone for us. It's a
Yeah.
crapshoot.
It's amazing we're still around. I'm your host, Jacob Thompson, and tonight I'm still working through my Bud Light seltzers, and I'm doing the lemon lime tonight. So pretty standard.
Joseph, and I am drinking Vizzy again. My last one, pineapple mango. Pretty
Nice.
tasty. Fucking top tier flavor right here.
Well, I'm Gabe, and I'm drinking what Cooper left in our fridge when he was over the other day. The spruce-tipped Imperial IPA from Blacklist. It is 9.5% and very piney.
Dude, I feel like those spruce ones are like very, very potent. Like I feel like I haven't had like a spruce tipped IPA that isn't like at least 8%.
Isn't like 2 beers in one.
Yeah.
And it's a pint too, so we'll see how fucking stupid I am by the end of the episode.
I was gonna say, I mean, yeah, that'll get you going.
For sure. And I'm Dayton. I'm drinking another Founders All Day IPA. I think this is my last one in my fridge. So hopefully next week you'll see me with a new seltzer. I wasn't able to find the Four Loko hard seltzer. And I think I might have to go to like a lower echelon of like liquor stores. Like I think I need to go somewhere like really shitty to find those.
Probably.
Same thing with like the PBR hard seltzer.
Do you know how much they like go for? Like how much?
Dude,
more
like Four
more or
Locos are
less
only
they
like
are?
$2, maybe $3.
Yeah,
I
but
can't
I
imagine
feel like
that.
seltzers take a little bit more effort, right, to make them.
I don't think so at
I
all.
don't know actually. I
Well,
never
it
thought about
depends
it.
how much work they had to do to get it set up, right? I mean,
Yeah, I
their
mean,
current facilities.
it's sparkling water and flavoring.
And liquor.
You know, yeah.
And alcohol. It just I loving all the ingredient lists for seltzers. It's like, seltzer water, alcohol, period, and then the flavorings.
Yeah.
I'm like, but what kind of alcohol? They just pouring ethyl alcohol in there?
A
Like,
lot of the time
Yeah.
it's cane sugar alcohol, at least with Truly's that is.
Yeah.
It's supposed to release into your system faster or something.
get you going.
Yeah. But I want to find the Four Loko hard seltzer still and the PBR one. Because I feel like those are two like big names that I'm missing out on. So
Do you know what the PBR one's called?
no, I don't.
So, yeah, I would like to try that one too. And Joseph, the Vizzy is the Coors one, right?
Molson Coors, yeah.
I can't believe Molson and Coors are the same company.
I mean, yeah. Molson beer is really good.
Yeah, I remember you drinking that a lot back at the house.
My dad
The
likes
Canada
it.
shit beer.
Yeah, because of Mr. Pax, Dayton's dad got me on
Yeah.
that train.
I remember I was at a party one time and these guys had, I want to say they were 40s of Molson,
Oh,
and they were drinking their 40s at a party, and I just came up to them and was like, Molson! And then they like cheers me and then set it back, and then just kept on shouting that the rest of the night because I mean obviously that's what you do at parties, you just yell. So.
Now,
you
here's the-
find something and you latch on to
You're
it.
leaving the that's the rule, right?
Well, here's the question: what's the better Canadian beer? Is it the Labatt or is it the Molson?
I don't
I
know.
don't know.
I think I'm gonna go with Molson. I think I've definitely drank Molson less than Labatt, but I just like, maybe it's just because I have like nostalgia for the Molson can. I don't know.
Molson's a bit harder to find, and the can design is better. It's cleaner, more simplistic than
Yeah,
Labatt.
it's up to the times.
Yeah.
I've never had Molson, so
Right.
maybe someday.
Maybe we'll get it when you're out here, Jacob.
I think
We
you
can
can
even
get
find it.
Molson in Minnesota. I think you can get it at like a Total Wine. I think
Yeah,
I've
we're
gotten
close.
it there.
We're close to Canada still, so I would hope so.
Yeah.
But,
I don't know.
mean,
Labatt
it's hard to
can be
track
hard
down
to
Labatt
find.
sometime. Yeah. Welcome back to the podcast, everyone. Like I said, it's episode 70. As always, you can find us on Instagram and Twitter. Follow us there for some dumb photoshops and BS. You can follow us on Twitch, which we're live on right now at EWF_podcast. And you can find our show every Monday on YouTube, Spotify, iTunes, and Google Play. So this week, it's, as we've been doing for a while now, when it's a multiple of 5. On the episode number, we're doing a STEM topics episode, so we're back at it for another one. Now, Dave, did you have anything you brought this episode, or are we doing the big topic first?
No, I thought we were just gonna go with the one that Gabe came up with.
All right, Gabe, introduce
All
it
right.
for us.
So let me preface this on how this topic came to be. We watched this stupid fucking YouTube video from a YouTuber named JonTron, and he does a video on a sitcom from 2000, or not a sitcom, sorry,
not a
a reality TV show from 2007. Where they take 40 literal children,
8 years old to 15.
yeah, to 15, and they leave them in like this western, middle of fucking nowhere desert town. And try and see if they'll self-govern and or be able to be adults. And they give them one toilet. They make them cook and clean, which like 8-year-olds know how to cook and clean.
They also dropped him like 3 miles away from the town and made him haul all of the supplies
Correct.
to the town.
They gave them like some carts, and they had to like pull the carts, and they had like goats and chickens that they had to bring with them at the
Yeah,
same
they made
time.
them kill the chickens too.
Well, they didn't make them kill the chicken.
Well, yeah, it was a choice.
Do you want to live? Kill the
Yeah.
chickens.
they brought it up like, hey, you do have chickens.
And again, 40 kids shared one outhouse. So, anyways, fucking funny story, or show. So, one of our roommate Tim, the Pan Man,
Man.
he downloaded the whole season, and we started watching it. And there's just one person that was I promise this gets to a scientific point at some point. There's this one person that she's like 10 years old, and she's like ahead of one of the houses. They split them into 4 people.
4
Or
districts.
four districts, yep. And
Game of Thrones shit.
she was a total bitch. Like,
Taylor sucks.
yeah, Taylor
ass.
sucks so much.
Fuck her.
She was just
God.
rude, and like people would like do stuff, or like they started telling her to do things, and she was just like not helping at all, just causing issues, being lazy, just like being a total bitch, right? I mean, as much as a bitch as you can be at 10 or however fucking old she was.
She was. Shit, how old was she? Was
I
she 11 or 12, I think? But yeah. Still.
They definitely made her like the villain of the show, and some of it could have been reality, like.
No, I
Well-
mean, just to interject quick. So when we were watching this YouTube video, Tim found an AMA on Reddit on one of the kids who was on the show.
Right, yeah.
People asking him questions, and somebody asked him like, "Was Taylor as bad as she was on TV?" And he's like, "She was worse. Like, she said that all fat people should be in zoos." It's like, holy
So-
shit.
Very
So-
authoritarian.
So for her background story, right? She did a lot of beauty pageants, which is very stuck up, and it's like, I don't do dirty things. She kept saying, "I'm a beauty queen. You have to do this." And her famous line in the show was, what was it?
Deal with it.
Yeah, deal with it. When like she would tell people to do like annoying stuff. Anyways, I'm thinking about this, and I'm like, okay, this person is very young. Why is she such a bitch? And I kind of fielded the question to the watch party, and I was like, is this something you think that she was born with? Like, she just has a personality where, I mean, there's some level of biology that is coded in. She's got the bitch gene, right? Or is this something she was like taught because she went to like these pageants and she was, taught to think this way about herself or whatnot? Now, I think my personal viewpoint, this is a nature versus nurture. That was that whole backstory was for the nature versus nurture debate. You guys didn't catch that? My personal opinion is I think that there's a split, but I think it definitely leans more towards the nurture side of things. But I do think that there is some element of just straight hard-coded levels of personality and then other things. So
Joseph, I'll go to you next since you were also watching the show. I feel like you probably thought about this a little bit.
A little bit. I mean, let's see. Trying to think now. Because Taylor specifically, like, where shit, I forget. Like, because at each kid, like, it says what state they're from. Because the whole idea is like it's a diverse thing. Like, kids of different ages, from different backgrounds, different states, different ways of life, whole shebang. But I think, well, obviously part of it, like her mom probably, or her dad, who I don't know, pushed her to like do these pageants, right? So like her mom is probably of a similar mindset. So it makes you wonder, like, did she get the mindset from being around her mom or from her mom?
Mhm.
Like, you emulate your parents. Is it because you grow up around them like that? Those are your figures growing up.
Mm-hmm.
But also, like, she's a kid and like she doesn't really have a full personality yet. So it's like hard to say, like, is she just emulating, her mom at that point?
Mhm.
Or if she was just like kind of spoiled and like gifted everything. So like in one episode they made her like, okay, it was a little extreme, but like they were pretty pissed at her because she didn't do shit. Like her district was supposed to cook for the week or for the however many days in between, like they do a challenge. And they did not cook at all. They also did not clean. So like everyone hated her. So they made her like take out the trash, which was load the garbage onto a cart, haul it like, I don't know, off into
It
the
wasn't
desert.
that far. That was
It
the
wasn't
sad.
that far,
It
but
was
it was
just
still
like
like,
down the road.
but
Oh
the
my
garbage
God.
wasn't in bags, so they had to like get gloves and just like kind of scoop it with their hands into this wagon. Maybe they had shovels too, but it was nasty. And then like they just dug a hole and buried it. Which like I wouldn't want to do that. So like I kind of feel for her, but also if I'm in that situation, it's like you just fucking do it. But if I was her,
But you also would have just cooked and cleaned to begin with.
that
Like
is true.
she made her bed, she has to sleep in it.
Yeah,
He
you
didn't,
can't
though.
say that about like a
She straight
12-year-old
up
kid.
didn't do it. And then they're like, okay, now you got to get water for us. And she like went one round, got 2 buckets of water, and poured it out in front of everybody. You total bitch.
That reminds me of the whole
Anyways.
Fruit Loop situation with you, Joseph.
Except you did it as a joke and then you cleaned it up.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
did not then go get more water.
So I want to make a distinction quick. So are we talking about personality or like interests or yeah, I mean I just want to narrow down exactly what we're talking about here on the nature versus nurture.
I mean, definitely personalities is like what made me start thinking about it, but I think interest can kind of be rolled up into that, right? I think certain personalities kind of gravitate towards certain interests.
Yeah, possibly.
I don't know. Like I think I kind of like reflected on myself before bringing up the topic and how like there's a lot of interests that I have, or a lot. There are some interests that I share with my parents. Like for example, my music taste is almost identical to my dad's, and
Mhm.
I have a feeling that that's more of a nurture thing because it's just something that was always around when I was younger. It was always the music I heard, and that's more than likely probably the reason that I like that type of music.
Mhm.
But at the same time, there's a lot of things that I just don't enjoy that he does. Like I enjoy doing stuff with the computers, and he enjoys doing stuff with the guitars. And like if we try to swap, it's just we just don't enjoy
What
it.
about
Right?
skip bow? You like playing skip bow, don't you, Gabe?
Dude, I swear to God, I don't know if I've told this story, but long story short, every fucking time I go back for Christmas or Thanksgiving, my mom loves to play skip bow, and I fucking hate it because it's a game that requires zero skill and pure luck, and it's just long. It's just long and boring because everyone's turn is too long, and you're like, there's turns where you just like drawing, like, oh, I'm done, I can't do anything because I can get the fucking RNGesus card I need to fucking play. You're just sitting there and waiting, and it's just fucking luck. And there's 30 cards you have to empty out. I don't. The basic rules are you have a deck and you have to get rid of it. So like there's 4 sides, and then it counts up to 12. So if you flip over your card and you got a 6, you have to count the cards up to 6, and then get rid of that one card on the deck. You have to do that 30 times, so it's just so fucking long. Hate that game. Fuck that
I
game.
mean, now, so thinking about the interest side of things, like, yeah, I'm a similar situation. Like my family, let's say like my brother, for example, he plays some video games, but he only plays like Call of Duty and like Madden, right? He's like the quote unquote mainstream gamer, where I'm, into more of the a broad
Hardcore
sense.
gamer. Would you say
Epic.
you're
Yeah,
also
sure.
a hardcore
I'm
gamer?
a hardcore gamer. And on the flip side, he cares a lot more. He like cares about sports, and I could give a flying fuck. Like I just don't know anything about sports. Um, so yeah, the question is like, why are there those differences? Is it nature or is it nurture? Um, my whole stance on the nature nurture topic, I'm very much in the nurture camp. I'm probably like 90-10, nurture nature. Um, and yeah, it is hard, like you were saying, Joseph, to differentiate between like, yeah, your parents' kids genetically, so you have their DNA, but also you live with them for 18 years, so it's hard to tell like where certain things come from. But
And like,
I,
yeah, at
There's
that age
also
too. I think the we're comparing to like this literal child.
yeah,
We're like we're you and your brother and like us. We're like we've grown up a bit. Like we've experienced other things than just living with our parent.
mhm.
So like I think comparing to her is a very different story.
But
But
Well,
also,
and
are you
there's
can
just
get
so
nurture
many.
from other people though too, like the people around you in your environment. Right?
yeah,
Exactly, that's what I was gonna say. Is like there's so much evidence of nurture in life. I mean, one of the ones that comes to mind immediately is like, let's say there's two friends who start hanging out together, and then they say they stay friends for 3 years. They start adopting each other's phrases, their way of speaking.
Mhm.
Like we were just talking about that. I was over at your guys' house last weekend, and Tim and his girlfriend were like sitting together, and they both did like the same like body movements, like body
Oh, your
language.
mannerisms are identical.
And it's just like that's because they spent a lot of time together. And I had friends, in high school who did the same thing, where they had shared mannerisms because they were friends for a long time. So like you pick up things from other people, you pick up things from your environment, and that's
Mhm.
so, in my opinion, a very easy distinction to make and very easy to see. Whereas it's more difficult to see the nurture or the nature side of things.
Mhm.
So it's hard for me to believe it as much.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna add too. Like, you can see the forces that are affecting the nurture side, but you can't see the forces that are making like your genes,
Hmm.
impact like what you're saying or like your mannerisms or even like if you're into like risk taking hobbies versus non risk taking hobbies.
Hmm.
I
It's
would
a
say that's
brain problem.
definitely easier to see when you're younger. For example, I have twin niece and nephew, right? They're shit. They're young. I want to say they're about to turn 3. Yeah, so they're probably 2.5 now. But like it's very clear to see the differences in how they act and how they behave. And they don't really have a lot of outside influence. I mean, obviously their parents and their siblings, but like they're so young that how much influence do they actually have from their siblings and their parents?
Mhm.
Or like even when, like I don't know, you talk to like your parents about how you were as a baby. It's like, oh, you cried a lot, you did this, you acted this way, you liked being held this way. That's to me, that's clearly nature. And that's like
Mhm.
and you see
Yep.
that, tend to carry on throughout the life.
Mhm.
I think early on it's very heavily nature, and then as you get older and you experience more things, you're as you grow more, you becomes more nurture.
Yeah, you can almost like override the nature aspect of it. Because like I
Hmm.
know for me when I was younger, I used to ride bikes like just as I do now, and I used to crash bikes just like I do now. Um,
I used
except
to get
like
brain damage just like I do now.
who knows, dude? Maybe I did. I don't remember it happening, but that may have been because it happened in
I know
kindergarten.
it was
Who
bad.
knows? But I guess like what I'm saying is like, let's say you have, because I mean, I feel like we've all seen like a child or maybe like a cousin or like even like a sibling or something like that that is like extremely averse to like something or another. Like it might be like bugs. Like they absolutely like don't like bugs. Like they don't like touching bugs. Like even just like I don't know, like the pill bugs or whatever, like non-harmful bugs that you have around you, or things that like playing sports or like just something that pushes them outside of their comfort zone. Like as you get older, you can recognize that you have like an aversion to that, except you still have the ability to like reflect on that and kind of push yourself past those aversions. Um, And in some cases, you might realize that, hey, like these like very like gut feeling aversions that I have aren't really founded in anything other than maybe your genes. I don't know.
But like you wonder, like, what if they had a bad experience with bugs when they were really young, but they don't remember it, and it was just kind of like imprinted, like on their, in
Well,
their
maybe
brain.
that's just their brain trying to protect themselves. Like it's an instinct, like
Yeah.
based in
Mm-hmm.
like a nature debate, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's just so hard because like this is so, I mean, this is so above our pay grade. Obviously, we're talking about like very, very complicated, neural systems here.
That is
Um,
this whole podcast. We just talk out our ass like
What
we
if
don't
yeah,
we
I mean,
know
know.
what
I'm
we're
saying it's
talking
not. I'm
about?
not saying this is different than the norm, but because when I'm thinking about like genetic diseases, right?
Hmm.
Things that can be passed along through genes, that could be harmful. But those are mostly like physiological, right? Like it's the way kind of your body is built, more or less. It's more of the anatomy
Well,
of things. Where
aren't a lot of mental issues genetic as well? Like I'm pretty
I
sure like
know,
schizophrenia and like bipolar are two examples of
Yeah.
ones that are carried throughout your
I
genes.
want to say, never. I'm a
well, yeah. So the question is it genetic because, your parents like it, and is it genetic anatomy wise, or because you grew up in the same house as that person?
Well,
I
schizophrenia, I'm pretty sure is like actually genetic.
Yeah,
Yeah, where
yeah.
schizophrenia, I would assume like there's some sort of neurotransmitter. I don't know enough about that
I
to
don't
like
know
talk
what the
about it, but
words are, but
there's
yeah.
probably something going on with your neurons and axons, the way your brain is
Mm-hmm.
built, that messes with things like that. The brain is so goddamn complicated. I mean, it's a huge rabbit hole. But I guess what I'm getting at here is like, is your personality based on your brain's anatomy? Because if it is, then I could definitely see the nature side more. But if it's not, then the nurture would be more prevalent, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So I think for me, the strongest argument for nature in my mind is not based in humans. It's based in like pets and how you can see a animal have a different personality even though it has the same upbringing. Like at one point, I had two guinea pigs, right? But they were very different personality wise, and like they stayed in the same cage their entire lives, right?
Well, when
Like
you had them, right?
right. I mean, I guess I don't really know how they were before,
Mm-hmm.
but it just at some point is that just like a genetic thing where like their instincts were like or just at a straight genetic level, like one was more dominant than the other. You know what I mean? Like that was
Mm-hmm.
there's one that may have just had more hormones, or I don't even know how that fucking
Hmm.
works. Uh, and just in animals, I feel like they have. I guess I don't know how the whole nature thing works or nurture thing works for them. Like, what are their influences? I don't know
Yeah,
what affects
yeah,
their personalities, but they acted completely different.
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Well, isn't there also the aspect of epigenetics where like your
Right.
genes can actually be influenced by your environment? So it's like
Yeah.
by nurturing, you're indirectly naturing, if that
Yeah.
makes sense.
Naturing.
Like,
Yeah. I
I
mean,
know what you're saying. Yeah, but
but
isn't that just nurture though? I feel like that's just, if your environment is affecting you, to me that's nurture. Nature is purely what you're born with.
okay, that might be an important distinction then, because I guess in my mind, I just kind of think of like what your nature is, like what your genes or what your like base is. I'll call it
Yeah.
like your like I guess I don't know the right word for it. But like when you're like on autopilot mode,
Hmm.
or like if no one even like touched you, yeah, okay, I guess I just kind of solved my own thing. If I think that no one, if you have no interactions, then epigenetics still would happen. No, fuck, dude, I'm fucking talking myself in circles.
all right, I've got
I
a
can't
doozy of
handle
a
this
question
big
for
brain
you guys.
shit.
If imagine if you were born with some genetic disease in some facet that would affect you physically, do
Hmm.
you think your personality would be the same, or do you think it would change?
If you know, okay, let's say it's terminal, that would, if you find out you have a terminal disease, that's gonna affect how you think, right?
I would say it would change you because it's going to change the way people are going to interact with you.
Right.
Yeah.
Depending on how, like,
I'm
if
saying,
if it handicaps you, right? You can't walk. You know, you're born paralyzed from the waist down, for example.
Mm-hmm.
That's a list of like how many things right off the bat, how many activities right there can you not do? Like, you can't walk, you can't run, right? So you can't play hardly any sports, mainstream sports. I mean, yeah, there's wheelchair basketball, I think hockey, football,
yeah.
probably. There's a bunch, you know, you can still play those sports. It's just probably a bit more difficult to get into and like find clubs and like whatever for them. So like, and right off the bat, other people are just gonna treat you differently. So your personality is gonna change.
See,
Whether it's because of that
too.
specifically.
But I also see people who like the show Nitro Circus, where like there's a guy who is paralyzed from the waist down since he was born, and he fucking jumps his wheelchair across like hundreds of cars because just maybe it was something he was shown younger, and he's like, "That's cool, I want to do it. Fuck that, the fact that I can't use my legs." Or maybe it was just something he was born with, like, you know, like Dayton, where he was just riding bikes and fucking hurting himself since, you know, whatever. Like, he had that mentality, right?
Are we sure he was in a wheelchair because it was genetics, or did he hurt himself when he was younger and become paralyzed?
He doesn't remember it.
He had a bad stunt or something. I don't know. But from what I understand, it's like it's a genetic thing.
There's just there's so many factors on both sides, because like we can't even begin to comprehend the amount of environmental factors that could exist. Because going back to like siblings, right? My brother is 2.5 years younger than me, you know, more or less, and we're different in a lot of ways, but similar in a lot of ways. And it's like, are the reasons we're different because of genetics, or because he grew up 3 years younger than me, and he was the younger brother, and there was the older younger brother dynamic. You know, he maybe got like hand-me-downs, we'll say. I don't know. Like, when you're younger than someone else, that's a dynamic that you interact with. Just the state of the world is slightly different. Technology that is, or things that are in the house, are different from when I was his age to when he's, you know, his age. I'm just saying there's so many environmental factors you can't even comprehend. And it's like, how do you differentiate that from the genetics?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm curious. So, what is, if you guys had to put like a percentage, like where would like the slider be for all you? I know that Jacob said he's like 90 nature, 10 nurture.
Opposite. Yeah. 90 nurture, 10
Oh,
nature.
yeah. Sorry, that's what I meant to say.
Gabe.
I don't know. I'd probably have to say a little bit less. I'd have to say 75% nurture, 25% nature. But it bothers me about that 25% because I'd like to imagine that you have free will to change yourself if you want to.
I do think that you have free will, because I think there's the whole epigenetics factor in it.
And therapy and stuff.
Yeah.
And that's fair. I'm just saying, like, even the 25% is a lot to be like, I don't know, maybe I was born with this. I don't know. Like,
but I don't know. I think
be a bitch at a fucking camp to 39 other kids. I don't know.
I just think that the nature part especially is your predisposition, and then I think that the nurture comes into play with, like, as you're like self-reflecting. You can consciously override those predispositions that you have because of your nurture aspect, or of your nature aspect. Because, like, for example, like people who have like anger issues, right? Who knows? I'm not saying that it's either nature versus nature or nurture, but if it is nature, you can take anger management and learn methods to cope with that, and obviously not take out your anger on certain things. So
yeah, I would even think of like I think alcoholism is kind of tied to genetics a little bit. I mean,
I think it generally runs in families.
Yeah.
It can run in the family, right? And there's obviously systems in place for people to overcome that, right?
But like, is that a placebo effect though?
Right, but
is it because
like,
you're around alcohol so much, and
also like, I'm a risk because my dad was an alcoholic. It's like, because you believe that, does that make it more true?
Right? Is it self-fulfilling prophecy?
Yeah.
Yeah, like you see that and like, oh, this is how he solves his problems. This is what he does to cope with these things. It works for him, it's probably gonna work for me.
Well, see, I think
whether it's conscious or subconscious.
That aspect, it can go one of two ways, right? You can either like be attracted to that mindset, or you can be extremely repulsed from that mindset. You can just be like, this is what my dad did, and I don't think that this was like the right method or whatever. Because like even I've seen that like in some of like my past like relationships where like we've grown up like in a pretty similar type of situation, except like our ways of just like living were like completely different, just based on how we handled it.
Joseph, where's your slider at?
Oh, yeah.
I would say probably 70-30. And I'm going to go 30 nature just because, like, again, I've seen, like, quite a few, like, children grow up. Like, I've got how many? 5, 6 nieces and nephews that I've seen, from, the day they were born up until today. And, like, you definitely see those personalities. You see them handle situations certain ways and interact with things certain ways, and that's not like, especially the twins, you see them come across the same problem and they handle it in two different ways. And I think at that age it's hard to say like, oh, they learned that from their parents, and then they're going to take that and carry it with them throughout their lives. That's not generally something that they're going to change, especially like, for example, I don't know, I got a video from my sister the other day and they were playing like in a ditch, like in their yard. Yeah.
The side of the road, just a random ditch.
Oh, that's a riveting childhood.
Yeah, well, they were trying to get up, like there's like, so there's like a drainage ditch like in their front yard, and then they got like the driveway over it, right? And like there's I don't know, like a pipe that goes underneath the driveway so that the ditch can keep going. But there's like a concrete slab at an angle to like protect it or something, and they were trying to climb up it, and like one of them was like going really slowly, right, and like trying to like be very careful. The other one's just fucking gunning straight up it, like no second thoughts. And like,
I've got devil's advocate to play.
But when you're 2.5 and you've had the quote unquote the exact same childhood, like they're twins, like how often are they apart, And to already see that, I think it's hard to argue that it is so strongly nurture.
All right.
But that's just me.
Here's my devil's advocate argument here.
All right, but you're wrong, but continue.
It's devil's advocate. I'm not okay. Anyway, so what if this is a gender thing? Because they
I was gonna bring that up also.
And before you say anything, because again, devil's advocate. But what if maybe the parents are treating them differently based on their gender, and or different parts of, because don't they say like men's brains develop slower or something?
They do, yeah.
At some degree.
Early age. Oh yeah, I think throughout the whole life. Yeah.
I don't know how it is early. I know later life.
Yeah, it's yeah.
Okay. Men are dumb.
Right, like they're more reckless typically. So it's like, is that just because they, like the kid who, I'm assuming it was the boy who was just scaling shit randomly?
No, it wasn't.
Okay.
But, Joseph was waiting to just freaking lay that down.
I was sitting on that one.
Crap card.
Yeah, you better reevaluate your gender biases.
Yeah, no,
literally devil's advocate. So
the girl is definitely more daring, almost like more aggressive in certain aspects, whereas the boy is a bit more like cautious with things.
See, that's really interesting.
In certain things, and obviously it changes depending on the situation.
Right. I do wonder about how parents treat different genders. I think that affects things. Like if you tell a boy like, oh, you can't play with like Barbies, you have to play with, Kinects or whatever.
Guns.
Skip the Legos, skip the Kinects. Here's a rifle.
I don't think there's I haven't read a lot, so I could be talking my ass. I just feel like it's hard to understand fully how critical those young years are in some person's affiliation for interests. If you are giving kids Legos, like I would imagine that it would help their creativity and problem solving skills, right? Versus like, I don't know, Nerf guns where you're just shooting a kid. I don't know, other kids.
I don't know, dude. I had a friend who would modify Nerf guns, and I would argue that taught him how to problem solve and how to engineer.
That's fair. And I've done that too.
Just a hot glue thumbtacks on the tips.
Thumbtacks.
Ooh.
Yikes.
I used to put nickels on the spring so it was more compressed, so it would shoot harder.
Hey,
Uh,
that's some science right there. That's Hooke's law.
Well, and
Yeah.
also, I mean, back to the niece and nephew, Joseph. I wonder if the parents, or if the kids are looking up to each is looking up to a different parent in a certain way. Like, is the more cautious boy looking up to the more cautious parent, and vice versa.
Hmm.
Again, I don't know your sister and your brother-in-law that well, so I'm not gonna make assumptions on what's going on. But I'm just saying, and like Gabe said too, they might be treating them differently. So there's just too many factors we don't
No,
know.
I totally
But also,
agree.
I'm not saying your argument is invalid either.
Yeah, no, but also I want to point out that like, granted, yeah, like their birthday or whatever, it's like, oh, this is the boy's present, this is the girl's present, but you go to their house, there's just a fucking bin of toys, like,
Yeah.
and they just like fucking dig through and grab whatever, like they're not like, oh, this was given to me, this is my, like, you know, at
Do
least
they
I
play
assume
with
they don't have that
Do they
kind of
play with toys
recognition.
like your nephew and just kind of smash them
They're,
around on the ground?
you know, not really. They're a bit different. Not too far off though.
That's not how every household would be. I would assume. Like I'm sure
Yeah, like,
people who separate it for people who. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
but
I
also
want
like
to.
I've seen, like, I mean, granted, obviously I don't live with them. You know, they're in Michigan, I'm in Minnesota, so it's hard to see them all the time. However, when I am over there, like, there'll be a toy out and it'll say like the baby doll's on the ground. I'll see the girl kind of like do something else, look at it, and then like gravitate towards it. Whether that's because my sister like gives it to her, shows it to her, like her dad shows it to her, and like, you know, kind of reinforces that or what, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But also, my
Instinct.
nephew, I've gotten a lot of Snapchats of him wearing princess dresses. Who knows? Who knows what's going on in that household?
I
Who
want to
knows if
circle
they're
back
pushing it or not?
You
to
want to
Dayton
circle
talking
back?
about anger management.
What kind of employee are you? Let's circle back.
Let's circle back. So Dayton talked about how, like, okay, somebody has anger issues, and then they could get, therapy or get some help for that, and then,
Mm-hmm.
remove those issues, anger issues. So back in the day, back before we understood DNA well, people thought that if I had my leg cut off and then I had a kid, my kid would be born with one leg.
Oh,
Basically anything
yeah.
that happens to you,
I
like,
remember that. It's some scientist. He's really fucking dumb.
where it's like, yeah, anything that like anything that you currently are will be passed on when you have sex, right? Obviously, that's not the case anymore. Like, your DNA is pretty static. I mean, there's a few mutations over a long period of time, but like, it's not really gonna change. So the question is, let's say, someone has anger issues, they get help, and then they have a kid. Does that kid have anger issues or not?
Well, I think that goes into the whole epigenetic things again.
Hmm.
Like if that training and therapy actually alters your genetic code, then
I don't think it does. We're talking about epigenetics. We're mostly talking about like electromagnetic radiation, aren't we? That's what we talked about in the anti-aging episode.
I mean, at some level, your cognitive functions would have to change because you're learning a new pathway, right, to solve that issue.
But just
Yeah,
because
but
the
that's not going to change your
cognitive,
DNA though.
yeah,
No, but I'm just saying, like, what if, okay, so he learns these new ways, or she learns these new ways, and they pass that on, like that knowledge on to.
But
to
I don't. But do you pass that knowledge through your DNA though?
I don't think
No.
so.
I would say no. I would say
Okay.
nurture would be.
You would pass it on through how you act in front of your
Yeah.
child. But the
Yeah.
question is, if the original anger issue was genetic, okay, it's a hypothesis here, thought experiment. Let's say anger is genetic. Having anger issue is genetic, right? So theoretically, he would get help and not have the issue anymore through
You assumed it was a
training.
he.
Sorry, he or she. Men, on average, tend to have more anger issues statistically. You can look it up. And this for ease of talking, it's a he.
Okay.
He has an issue when he's growing up. He gets therapy for it. He doesn't have the issue anymore. He has a kid. If anger is genetic, the kid would be naturally angry, right? If it's not genetic,
Well, more prone to it.
more prone to have an anger issue. If it's not genetic, the kid would not have the issue because of his parenting style. He would not be an example of that behavior. Or possibly B, he's overcorrecting and being, again, I'm just throwing shit at the wall. He's overcorrecting and being quote unquote like too nice, and the kid's like, that's not the right way of living. I'm gonna lash out in the opposite direction.
Mm-hmm.
It's like there's so many like different scenarios where one or the other could be correct or not. Like there's just too many factors.
I guess I would want to say that I mean, this isn't the thought experience that it's genetic, right? So I don't know, that makes it tough. Like drawing from my personal life, I know like my dad is a lot more direct than I am. He's a very direct person. If something pisses him off or something upsets him, and same with my mom, really, like they'll say it to that person, and to me that fucking terrifies me.
Hmm.
And I think about it a lot. If it's something that I saw him do and I saw it make people uncomfortable and I didn't like the reaction the person was giving. And
Hmm.
maybe it's my like overcompensation of like, okay, I can see that this is an uncomfortable situation and I don't want any more of those, so I'm gonna just be more passive. Or was it something that that's just how I am? Like that's just
Yeah.
how I was born, right? I mean it's the same type of argument.
Or is it something that just comes with age? Like as a kid,
And that's true too. I've
because like when you're younger, right, everyone's your superior other than you got your peers and your superiors, right? Whereas as you get older, as you become an adult, there's a lot more people that are your peers, and so like you know,
you're
your peers are your friends, whereas when you're an adult, they're just other people, and you can recognize that more. And even if someone's like 10 years older than you, when you're 45, a 55-year-old is like it's not
Mm-hmm.
as big of a difference as when you're 10 versus a 5 or like a 15 and a 5-year-old. That is a much bigger difference,
Yeah.
you know.
I've
So
had
like
that tell me before too, where like it is something that has kind of come with age, where like after a while he's just more direct.
Mhm.
But at the same time, I've heard some stories when he's my age, and I think in general he's just more of a direct person. I mean, both of my parents really are. So it's like, who's to say if that's just my reaction to how they interact with people, or if it's just like,
But is it also a generational thing, probably, like possibly? Like, is that's the world they grew up in? You grew up in a different world.
and that's also a whole other thing. Like my
You
environment is entirely different. Where like
you're a snowflake, Gabe.
yeah, arguably there's more things that we are taught to I don't know to be cognizant of, I guess.
Yeah.
And that's not to say that like it there our last generations are rude by any means. It's just there are things like, hey, this could this is another thing that you could think about, right?
there's more of a culture of other people, I think, than in past generations. It's more common, at least,
Mhm.
from what I've seen.
Well, even just like mental health and like sexual orientation is just like two big things that I see in my generation that have really like been not a focus, but like something that I haven't seen in like previous ones.
It's something we're much more aware of than they were.
And that's the thing too, is it's a lot more open now. So it's just like how we handle it is completely different because to us it may be a lot more normal, which goes back to the fucking nurture, right? We're like
Hmm.
that's
I
just
mean,
the
look,
environment.
I mean, social media is the epitome of all that. It's like the coalescence of all those things. I mean, Twitter, you're seeing a million different people's opinions on every single topic ever imagine,
Mhm.
and
I agree
it's
with
like,
none of them.
yeah. So it's just like you're just getting so much stimulus, and you're trying to figure out who you are in that, eye of the storm. But
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Dave, did you ever say where you were on the spectrum?
No, I think that I'm probably like 80-20. Mainly because I
Yeah.
just
I'm
it's
guessing nurture nature.
yeah.
Okay.
I don't know. Like I just feel like that's a good ratio. That ratio pops up in a lot of different places too, and it's more or less what I think. So
Would you say it's nature's ratio?
yeah, I think
Yeah.
so. It's not quite the golden ratio, the
Okay.
the Fibonacci series, whatever. But
Fibonacci
it's
sequence.
it's close.
Man, look at that. 4 white guys, similar upbringing, similar education, all have the same opinion on nature versus nurture. Cool.
It's almost like we need more diversity on the podcast.
It's
Well, I
almost
don't know. I
like
feel like
it's the
also,
same
like,
thing we've always ran into.
a lot of
Cool.
people, I feel like a lot of people nowadays they've shifted more towards that it's more nurture than nature.
I would
I
agree
feel
with
like
that.
I feel
Actually,
like that's even pretty common among like academics, but I don't know.
we need to get a psychologist on here and ask him some questions.
Yeah, let's just call up a psychologist that we know and are good friends with, you know?
So, as a small topic to end this episode, so last week Gabe and I built some new computers, baby, and yeah, it's technology related, so it counts. Um,
I like where this is going. I don't know what the topic is, but I like it.
we both, we actually ended up getting the same exact parts because it was a really good deal at Micro Center, so we got some new parts. But anyway, what my thing is, I want to make an analogy between building a computer, building a PC, and making a broom ball broom in tech. Okay,
One
so
is way more fun than the other.
let me get
One's
there.
also way more expensive than the other.
Yeah, price I can't really argue with, but we all love playing broom ball. It's a great fucking time. We
Mhm.
all love playing on a very fast, powerful PC. You know,
It's a great
just
fucking time.
a great time. You're just have the end result in both these situations very much. It's fun and it's relaxing, and you're just like, wow, this feels right.
Hmm.
But and you see that in the distance, like, how do I get that? How do I play broom ball with my friends, or how do I have just a very nice, fast PC, right? Well, you gotta make something happen, right? You gotta build the computer, you gotta make your broom ball broom. And on paper, it sounds really fun. You're telling me I gotta get all these big parts, and I gotta put them together, and then I can plug it in, and it turns on, it works, or I get this nice this corn stalk broom that looks like a piece of shit, and I can mold it into this amazing
Into this
destructive force.
weapon.
Straight up
Exactly.
weapon that I'm gonna use.
In bat, Jacob.
Like this is gonna be so fun. I'm so excited to like build these things, right? You're like, and it's really fun to buy the parts, right? Like you're looking doing research, like, oh man, this graphics card looks cool, and the CPU, and
I
you're like,
too
oh.
research the broom I buy.
You might
Well,
do some research. You might do some like
it's more like
scouting.
on the broom side, it's more like I'm gonna get this color hockey tape. I gotta get my electrical tape to make it
But
harder,
like I
I would
would
argue
say the
because you're
type
like
of tape too.
double good defensively, but the bat is good offensively, right? Like, I don't
Yeah.
know.
Or like remember first year we all used duct tape like a bunch of idiots, and then we
like a bunch of
realized,
noobs.
yeah, and then we looked into it more. It's like, hey, if we use these other kinds of tapes, turns out a bit better.
Cold, ooh, fucking contracted real good. Fighting it
Mhm.
so hard.
And you find like a really cool case and maybe some RGB lighting for your PC to make it look hot. You look up some interesting shapes for your broom to make it more effective. And like I said, looking up the colors of hockey tape you want to make it really cool design. You're like, all right. And then you get all the parts, you go to build it on both situations. You're like, all right, let's fucking do this. I'm so excited. And then it just fucking sucks. All right. Both cases, it fucking sucks. Like it's on the broom side, right? Do you know how fucking annoying it is to make a broom ball broom? So you have this big cornstalk broom, right? First you get that metal piece of shit out of there, which takes way too goddamn long. You gotta cut all the bristles, and the bristles are pointy and they
Well, you
hurt
got to
your
get
hands.
that weaving that's halfway
Oh yeah,
down.
also the weaving, yeah.
That sucks to get
The
out.
string weaving and then the metal bar.
Yeah.
You gotta, get those out without getting a bunch of fucking cuts and bruises on your hands, right? And you're like, all right, I gotta cut down about 75% of these bristles to get it to the shape I want,
And then
And
you
then
gotta string them up like spaghetti and then
Mhm.
like form it.
yeah, you gotta do it. Well, even when you're cutting it though, the shit just gets everywhere. It's all
Yeah.
over the floor. I mean, you try to mitigate it with like a box or like some tarp, but it just the bristles get fucking everywhere. There's dust going in your face, like. And yeah, like you said, you had to bundle each up, tape it, bundle the bundles together, tape, make it into one big bundle. Then you can finally get to the part of like putting the tape on. And then you fuck it up a little bit. I got to start over, and like it just takes so goddamn long. By the end of it, you're like, okay, it looks cool, but like, look at this fucking mess.
It's
Like,
not nearly exactly what you were expecting.
exactly, it
It's
doesn't
like
quite look how
pretty
you want it to look.
close.
Kind of
It's like the
close.
shadow of what you thought, but like, good enough for the girls I date,
Like when you
but
imagine a really pretty picture and you try and draw it and you just don't have the skills to do it.
it's like following like a Bob Ross painting.
Yeah.
And you're like, again, like you're happy you did it, but you're also happy it's over. Cause you're like, fuck, like thank God I don't have to do that ever again, right? And you know what? It's the same fucking experience building a PC. I'm always so excited to build a computer. I don't know why anymore, because it never is as fun as I think it's gonna be. It's fucking stressful, dude. You think you're gonna break shit every fucking turn.
Jacob,
Like,
I hate to burst your bubble, but I loved building my computer on a Saturday. I was playing slow music. I was having a ball. I was
I
having
just
so
kept running into issues, dude. Like, I mean, the classic are like putting. I'm assuming most of our listeners have never built a computer before, but like RAM are like these sticks, and you slot them in the motherboard lengthwise, but like you gotta like push them in there, like really push, and you feel like you're gonna break the motherboard in half,
It
and
takes force.
The
it takes
worst
some
is
serious force.
the 24 pin connector with the power.
Oh God, yeah.
That one bends the board every time. You just have to acknowledge that it's not going to break in just full send.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
you're shoving the RAM in, hoping you don't break anything. You're trying to line up your CPU cooler to make sure all the screws line up, and you're like, it doesn't quite line up. All right, I gotta try it again. Like Gabe said, plugging everything into the motherboard. You're like pushing hard against the board. Like, why isn't it clicked yet? Like, finally get it in there. Even like I was trying to screw my motherboard into my case, and I kept like the screws are so goddamn tiny, and they give me about a quarter millimeter of space to work with for me to fit my screwdriver in and try to
You get
screw 'em
like
in.
a half thread, and if you can over tighten them and like ruin the motherboard.
Yeah.
Also, for reference, if you don't put them in, it shorts it out because it's like used for ground, so it can completely destroy.
Yes, you have to do that shit. I also, me and Gabe both kind of cleaned our computers because we were using the same cases we had. So I cleaned all my fans manually, which took way too goddamn long.
Gross.
Like it's fucking disgusting. There's dust everywhere,
Yeah.
and it's so stressful. Like the graphics card lining it up right. You're like, oh, did I do it with the screws line? It's just like, fuck. And it literally took me like 5 hours, and
And then if you
finally,
want to manage the cables and make it not
oh,
look
I
like
forgot
a
about that.
rat's nest.
Yeah, so then I finished it, plugged it in, and it worked. And I'm like, okay, it works. Now I gotta manage the cables. So like you like bundle the cables, tie a zip tie around it, cut off the zip tie end. But I kept, which was fine. But one time I cut off the zip tie end without holding onto it, and it flew into one of my fans. And I'm like,
Had it on
fuck.
when you were doing that?
No, it wasn't on, but it flew into it flew into
So-
one of the fan bays where it wasn't easily accessible. So I had to pull off the front of my PC again and grab that out of there. And it's just like, kill me, dude. Fucking kill me. Like, I want this to be over. And then, you finally finish and you got to clean up the whole mess again. Like, there's random screws everywhere. I had like newspaper out. There's, fans everywhere. It's just like, fuck. Like, it sucked. It sucked. I'm happy it's over, and now my PC runs fucking fantastic, and I'm happy about it. But that process in the middle, I have such, for that and Broomball, such rose tinted glasses beforehand and after, but during it's fucking sucks.
All right, I have an analogy to make between
Go for it.
computers and broomball again. So
Ooh.
this is for
Is it
my
that
personal...
I'm bad at both?
No. No, it's a personal experience of mine. So for all of you guys know that I have broken my fair share of broomball brooms, not my own, but other people's broomball brooms. So can you imagine?
You also broken other people's computers?
No, that's what I'm getting at though. Like, imagine you put in all this effort into building a friggin' PC, and then you lose a game. Let's say you're playing like a battle royale. You're playing some friggin' Call of Duty Modern Warfare or something like that, Warzone. And you lose a game, and your PC breaks. Like,
No, it's not even that bad. It'd be like the person you lost who come over to your house and throwing it out the window. They would just break people's brooms right in front of them. Obviously, during games, he'd slam his broom down and break it in half.
I wouldn't do it.
It
on
wasn't
purpose,
like it was
though.
on purpose. Yeah.
No, it wasn't
never-
on purpose, but that's
It
what
was never on purpose. It was because
It was never malicious.
I was shooting the ball and they got in front of me. Like, I just think that's a
I've
funny
never
thought.
broken a room, but I've broken other people's, and just the face that they make, it's like, I am so sorry. I know you
Yeah.
put so much effort into this. I'm bad, but I need to get the
It's like
whenever-
that what was it? Was it a Simpson quote? Like, look at that. You can see the exact moment their heart breaks. And it's like, oh, I gotta spend another 5 hours now.
Yeah, it's like
or
watch
like
people
use an
die
old
inside.
one.
It's funny, whenever I saw a date and break room, I never thought about that. I always thought like, oh, Must have been one of their shitty brooms.
I broke their prized possession.
God,
I really
yeah, that would fucking suck if every time you lost a game on a computer game, your computer just exploded. Like, holy fuck.
Dude, my computer would break within 5 seconds. I'd boot it up and I'd fucking lose.
Dude, even like a 0.001% chance would be like too high.
It's too expensive of a machine to do that.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's funny though, Gabe, because I did the classic, I finished building it and I plug everything in, all right, press power button. Nothing happens. I'm like, fuck. Oh wait, I didn't turn on the power supply. All right, it worked. We're good. You always forget to switch on the power supply.
I don't mean to flex, but I got it on the first boot. It's never happened to me before. Building
Really?
From first power on it worked perfectly.
Dude,
See,
I would have
not to flex.
Other than installing Windows.
Windows didn't activate, and that was a whole nother ordeal.
Not to flex, but both times I built a computer, they booted the first time.
That's impressive.
Dude,
I've
I
had
don't
that
I don't
happen.
mean to flex or anything, but the last time I rebuilt my computer just like a few months ago, I would have had it in the first try if my friggin' motherboard manual told me that the first USB slot was designated to the keyboard or mouse.
Oh, I remember you telling me about that. Dude.
Really?
Yeah, I had to
That's
do
a
like
new thing.
I had to do some serious googling to like figure out what the issue was, because like all my LEDs were coming on, fans were coming on, like it would even like flash up on like my monitors like coming on, but then it would like time out because there wasn't a device connected via USB to like set up the computer for the first time.
Really?
Yeah, that
That
took me
sucks.
so
I mean-
long.
The last few times I like built from scratch, I had a bad part at some level, which is just like sometimes that happens. Sometimes you just get, bad luck. But
Yeah, I've never had that actually.
I had a graphics card go bad, like, was it a month or two after I bought it? That kind of sucked because I thought, because I was playing a fucking bootlegged game, and I thought it just fucked my computer. That was my first. I was like, oh, this is a shitty, bootleg.
You damn pirate.
I didn't even pirate the damn game. I took it from my friend who pirated it.
I'm really happy the parts I used, like this build, I'm glad it wasn't my first ever build because the motherboard manual was dog shit compared to my first build.
Yeah.
Like it was so bad, Gabe. I mean, like
Yeah.
I think if I knew what I was doing, but if I was some noob, I would have been so confused on what to do.
I used the internet for the header pins for the audience. There's the worst part, arguably.
Yeah. Well, it's up there.
Yeah. It's like 6 pins depending on how many. And they're like very, very tiny, like
pencil,
Very
mechanical
wire.
pencil lead.
yeah, it's about that thin. But you have to put them in a mechanical pencil lead times 2 space. We had to put like 6 of them in a very specific order, and some of them are positive, and some of them are negatively charged. So like if you flip them, it can kind of I mean, they're better now, but it used to mess up your like the motherboard. Like you have to be very specific about it, and it just fucking annoying. But anyways, the manual did not have that information. You had to look it up online.
It was on the motherboard itself. I don't know if you looked at
Yeah,
below the pin. There was it had like a graphic on it, but I had to draw up on some scratch paper. I'm like, all right, what am I doing here? What am I working with?
Yeah.
And like, I don't know about you, Gabe. In my case, like the header pins aren't all. There's 8 of them, right? They're not all connected. They're like there's like the 4 block, and there's like a 2, and then a 1-1. And it's like, why isn't it just standard on the order so they can just all be together?
They've started to make like a tray almost that you plug all of your header pins into, and then you plug that into the board.
See, when I built mine, I think my motherboard came with a like converter. So like you plugged them all into like this thing, and then it was just like a one plug into the actual motherboard. But I still had to like look up like, okay, which pin goes where. It's just I didn't have to mess with it on the board itself.
There's no good standards, and like sometimes the black ones typically mean they're negative, and colored ones typically mean they're positive. But depending on the case you buy, sometimes they aren't.
Yeah, mine are all black.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, that's a whole nother topic. But sometimes in the world, just in society, the lack of standards in certain areas is baffling to me.
Dude,
it's like, how is this not
having
standardized?
a standard doesn't mean that it's going to be good though. Like,
What's
I'm
funny?
not saying that. I'm just surprised. Like, why the fuck isn't there just like one method for this thing that has like
because it's
5
hard,
options?
dude. That is a lot of man hours on a lot of different companies, um, to
Because
even
it
get that off the
changes
ground.
the way you
Yeah.
wire the motherboard. Like if
I'm not
depending
talking
on
about
how
the
you like
motherboard
set it up, like
specifically.
those pins, maybe like well, I granted it's probably like a 5-layer board, so it's not as difficult. But like depending like so like in school I had to print a motherboard and I couldn't put it the way I wanted to, put certain components the way I wanted to because there is no way to physically attach the
Yeah.
connection, you know? So I mean, like there's constraints within that too, which make it
Yeah.
difficult. But obviously, those boards they can put a lot more money into them than the one that we printed at Tech. That was like just a 1-layer piece of shit.
Mhm.
But
I'm much more talking about like standard operating procedures not being in place sometimes.
yeah,
It's just like, can we just fucking make a procedure for this, please?
you know what's really funny to me? You know how like USB 3, right? Usually it's blue, right? And
Mhm.
people assume like the little plastic inside like that.
Razor.
Well, no, that's the thing. That's not a standard, like at all. Like it's just like an assumed company thing. Like everyone just kind of assumed that USB 3 is blue. So like there's no like regulation or like anything that says it can't be any other color or USB 2 can't be blue. Like it's just something that companies like, yeah, we'll just make it blue, I guess. And like it's just been
And
so
everyone else is
ingrained in
like, all right.
people. Yeah, and like it's just
Yeah.
been so ingrained in people that like they just assume it's blue. So like I've seen posts on like r/asshole design or something. It's like this USB 2.0 is blue on the inside. It's like yeah, because they can do that.
Just because they can doesn't mean they should. I mean, that's
Oh
just being
no, I'm just
dumb.
saying like you get like quote unquote standards like that.
Yeah, I mean, you're gonna get some consumer backlash if you like
Mm,
break those societal rules.
yeah.
But all
I
right,
was
well, that's
just
our episode for this week. Thanks to everyone for listening. As always, you can follow us on Instagram and Twitter at EWF Podcast. Follow us on Twitch at EWF_podcast. Yes, it's different. You can find our show every Monday on YouTube, iTunes, Spotify, and Google Play. Thank you very much, and we'll see you next week. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.